Hello, welcome to Adzapier's live session. We apologize for the technical issues that we've been having. I know we're a little bit late today, but we still have a great topic that we're going to be discussing. It's going to be countdown to U.S. data privacy laws. Are you prepared? So it's a continuation from last week's discussion. We're going to be going over the new data privacy laws, the timeline of the laws and when they're going to be enacted, and kind of what to expect going forward. So I'm Lauren Leary. I'm going to be your host today. I'm the marketing manager for Adzapier. I have an extensive background in all things marketing, including digital marketing and helping companies stay compliant with when it comes to data privacy. With me today is Dharmesh Patel. Welcome, Dharmesh.
Hey, Lauren, thank you for having me. Third time. I think third time is a charm for us. We've been having a little bit technical difficulties here, but hopefully all the problems are resolved. A little bit background about myself. Prior to starting at Zapier, I worked at the various data-driven organization that created a chance for me to basically create a consent management platform. Because a lot of businesses were having problem managing the consent, whether it be consumer cookie compliance or data discovery or creating a tool for all the businesses, whether it be IAB-TCF compliance. So we created a lot of tools around privacy and keeping data in mind.
Great. Thank you for that background, Dharmesh. Let's get into our topic. So first, we're going to talk about the laws and data privacy laws that are currently in place right now. So we have the GDPR that everyone knows, the General Data Protection Regulation, which was enacted on May 25th, 2018. Dharmesh, can you give us some insight into the GDPR, kind of what it is, how has it affected the landscape of data privacy right now?
Yes, in terms of GDPR went live in 2018. It changed the global landscape of privacy. Because it was first major privacy regulation that does not affected the EU countries and EU residents. It affected all the businesses because all the businesses that actually serve any services to GDPR client, you need to be GDPR compliant. So in terms of landscape, it changed the entire landscape of data privacy. And this is an inspiration for me to actually create a consent management platform because a lot of businesses businesses care about privacy, user care about privacy, and businesses need a tool to actually manage those privacies as well.
Perfect. Now, so we know that the GDPR was first introduced in Europe, but then
Mhm.
United States got on board, and California was the first state to enact their data privacy laws, which is known
Mhm.
as the CCPA or the California Consumer Privacy Act. This was enacted January 1st, 2020. Dharmesh, can you give us some background about the CCPA? Was it inspired by the GDPR? How has businesses been impacted by this?
Correct. Well, yes, definitely it was inspired by GDPR because again, GDPR set a step forward for all the privacy regulations to come in, whether it's CCPA, CPRA, or all the U.S. landscape that coming down the pipeline. It has a lot of material to cover under the privacy regulation. Instead of uh, in terms of privacy by Gartner, by 2023, 60% of a world population will have some sort of a data privacy protection regulations. And that is all going to be fall under GDPR. Mostly people are going to take ideas from GDPR and incorporate it into the state laws or nationwide laws as well.
Perfect. So now we took a look at the current landscape of the data privacy. Let's look at what's coming up and going forward. So speaking of California, we know that as of January 1st, 2023, they are going to be enacting the CPRA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Rights Act. So this is kind of an amendment to the CCPA. Can you talk about kind of the major changes, additions to the CPRA from the CCPA?
Yeah, I mean, look, CCPA, CPRA is a better version of CCPA. Before when the CCPA got enacted, we saw a lot of data requests coming from the users, right? People wanted to opt out from the system. People wanted to change information, and quite a lot of businesses were not ready for that kind of changes. In terms of CCPA and CPRA, there are a couple of small nuance in a CPRA that actually gives user more access control of the data that they have. Under CPRA, there is also a special term nowadays called sensitive personal information, SPI, which is covered under CPRA, which covers all your information, whether it be your race, ethnic data, your religion data, or any generic data that you're collecting under CCPA, that's going to get covered under CPRA. If you're collecting some sort of credit card information, uh, collecting social security, that also going to consider this very sensitive information. So as a business owner, you got to make sure that data is consented prior to storing it. Also, data is stored securely. So security and privacy kind of goes together, and that is all defined in a CPRA as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that background. So now let's talk about some of the other states and their timelines of what's coming up. So we know there is Virginia, which is going to be enacted January 1st, also 2023. Then there's
Mhm.
Colorado, which is going to be July 1st, 2023. We have
Yes.
Connecticut, that's going to be July 1st, 2023. And then Utah, which is December 31st, 2023. Can you give us some insight into these data privacy laws, kind of, the differences, similarities?
Yes. So all laws in the U.S., whether it be CCPA, CPRA, or VCDPA, which is Virginia, Colorado, Connecticut, Utah, they all have a similar standards. They have little nuance. For example, there are differences between sensitive information, how you collect, how you store. That's considered a CPRA, and I believe it's also falls under CDPA and a CPA as well. In terms of all the similarity into the laws, all these laws, it's created to make sure it give a user a right to restrict information, more control of the data, right? Limit duration of how long you can keep the particular data as well. Uh, 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 and where data collected, how collected, where is stored, and how secure it is. Sensitive data also takes a big effect on all these new regulations as well.
Perfect. So now we talked about the states that actually have a timeline and when the timeline is. Let's talk about some states that have talked about passing data privacy laws, but they actually haven't been enacted yet. There's no timeline as far as when it's going to be. So there's Massachusetts, Ohio, Florida, Texas. Can you talk about these and when you think that it might be enacted?
Yes, all these laws and regulation, again, they're going to be mostly derived from CPRA, CCPA. So if you're not prepared for it, or if you're just starting out, or you fall in any of the state, which is Ohio, Texas, Florida, and they're still crafting the privacy law, you can start by creating the consent now. Ask for user for consent, but sooner or later, in US, I believe in US should be a nationwide privacy regulation. And that's going to affect not just business in all the states, but nationwide. So whether it be in Florida, Texas, and you don't want to be in a situation where all the going to be unprepared. Start preparing right now. All the organization collects some sort of data. If you think about it, right, all organization is a data-driven organization because everybody collecting some sort of information for either for analytics, for marketing purposes, or advertisement, or just internal audits. You are collecting some sort of data, and knowingly, unknowingly, you're gonna collect some PII, and you might be breaking some law. So, ideally speaking, even though those states are not have a comprehensive privacy regulation, and you're still doing business in, for example, if you're doing business in California, you need to be CCPA and CPRA compliant. So if you're serving to their audiences, you got to make sure that all data is, first of all, give user right to the data, whether it be right to delete, right to correct, right to export, or what have you.
Perfect. Thank you for that insight. So now we spoke about everything on a state level. Let's talk about on a federal level. So we know that the ADPPA, the
Mhm.
American Data Privacy and Protection Act, is hopefully right around the corner. Can you talk a little bit about, the ADPPA? What kind of impact is it going to have? When do you think it would be enacted?
Yeah, in terms of ADPPA, I hope it get enacted soon, and hopefully it's going to be bipartisan bill. It has a great content in terms of the data privacy. Right now, there's a lot of state level data privacy regulations, which makes businesses a little bit harder to maintain and create the policies for each state differently. ADPPA, hopefully, it can streamline all the processes for all the businesses. Under ADPPA, all data brokers need to register under FTC, right? They're going to have a global or national registry of the data brokers. Just like, what you have like a do not call list, you might have a do not collect list, and that I'm looking forward to that kind of things. Um, and it allows all the users to either delete information, correct information. It makes business provide this information within 30 days. This is the reason why a lot of businesses need like tools like a DSAR, data subject access request, right? Which you might not be needed right now, but when the ADPPA goes live, or GDPR, if you want to be GDPR compliant, then you already need a tool like that.
Great. So now that we spoke about the different timelines, we talked about state, we talked about federal. So now, what do they need to do to prepare now? How can they get started in making sure that they're compliant, making sure that they have everything they need, so when January 1st comes along, they're not, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of
So,
stuck
yeah.
then.
Yeah, in terms of so if you're going to be GDPR compliant, if you're serving any data or storing any data for EU residents, if you have a business in California, you should be already have a plan to actually, or already be compliant, have a tools and processes already in place. Under GDPR, CCPA, it gives users a right to access data, correct data, delete data, and data portability. If you don't have those processes already in place, if you don't have that is defined, you might want to start ASAP. Uh, so this is the reason why you want to talk to a company like Adzapier and figure out what tool works the best for you. Figure out what data is being collected, how is it collected. You might have a website, you might have backend processing, you might have some web app, or you might just have a web form or a lead gen company, right? And you're collecting all this data. Not just that you need to get the consent, but you also have to store history of the consent. So if there is in case of audit or lawsuit, you can go back and prove that this is how you have collected the consent as well.
Great. So now we talked about how do you prepare, but we know there's always going to be one way or another, for whatever reason, people are not going to be prepared. January 1st can come along, July 1st can come along, and they're just not going to be prepared. What exactly, what happens if you're not prepared? Are there fines involved? What are the ramifications?
Right. It all depends how much data you're collecting, how much data you have, and how many times you make the same offense multiple times. So if you're collecting a lot of PII level data on your platform and you get fined, it will be a hefty fine. We've seen a company like a Facebook, Google, Twitter, Mozilla, all got some sort of fine lately because they're not the compliant on the GDPR. And we probably, if the if a nationwide US law goes in effect, we probably see a lot more in US as well. So if you're not prepared, if you're an ad tech industry, if you're in a healthcare, if you're in a marketing agency, you have a lead gen company, or you have e-commerce, you need to start doing the compliance right now. Figure out what data is you collecting, how you're collecting, and how is it stored right now. All right. I believe we're losing Lauren. See if we can bring someone else. Or as you can see, a lot of US state regulations are coming in a play. Organization needs to be ready for not just these 4 or 5 states that come have some sort of privacy law that is going effect in next year. There's more and more coming, like Florida, New Jersey might have one as well. So ideally speaking, if you're not ready for it, get started right now. Continue, talk to all the experts in the industry, figure out all the data points, how data is getting stored, where is stored from. If you're going to be GDPR, if you need to be GDPR compliant, make sure you have a cookie compliance in place. Make sure you have a DSAR in place. Make sure you have a security tied down, or if you need to have access to, if data discoverability is another big topic in a privacy. And so, for example, if you receive a DSARA request, you want to make sure that you fulfill those requests in timely fashion. For example, PDD, GDPR, you have to make right to delete, right to correct. All that requests you need to actually reply within 20 to 45 days. And if you don't have some sort of software or automated way of doing it, ideally you're gonna either not fulfill the request or not gonna have or can get fined in the long run.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Dharmesh.
I
Okay,
don't know. We lost you for a couple of seconds. I don't know where we lost you.
we
So
lost. I'm back. Best laid plans. Gotta love being live. Anything can happen. So I know last we discussed about how you could be prepared. Uh, so did we talk about if there's any companies that are exempt from data privacy laws?
another, this is a lot of questions that we get asked a lot. For example, if you're government, if you're a nonprofit, or if you're a very small business is not collecting a lot of data, or not data at all, then you don't need to be compliant. But if your business is collecting some sort of data, knowingly or unknowingly, and I believe all businesses are data-driven businesses nowadays, whether they like it or not. And a lot of companies are using cloud-based services. So you have a process where you need to define under GDPR, like who's a controller, who's a processor, and you need to have those type of agreement to make sure that from all your provider to make sure that it gives you the proper coverage under each regulations.
Great. So now let's kind of talk about from a marketer's point of view. So if you're a marketer, you're sitting there, you're like, okay, all these data privacy laws, how are they going to affect us? How are they going to affect my marketing strategy? Can you kind of discuss a little bit about the impact that it's going to have on marketing, good and bad?
Sure. Marketing is the first one to get affected in data privacy, right? For example, you have collected so many leads, so many contact level details over the year. It took a lot of time for marketing to actually accomplish that. Uh, but if you have not collected any consent with it, for example, or don't have a history of consent, or don't have a proof of consent, when all the regulation goes in effect in your state, for example, then you might have to delete all that information. You got to start all over again. So you can just see that the pain point of the marketing side. And marketing is usually collecting all data. So for example, you're collecting analytics to page views. You're collecting contact level data from a contact us page. You might collecting email subscription for your newsletters, and and ideally most of the time it's a marketing and privacy regulator in your company actually who's responsible to make sure the data is collected in a secure compliant manner. Again, establish the make sure before you actually start collecting data, figure out what data you collecting. There might be a lot of data that you're collecting unknowingly, and just give a user transparent a way of either opting or opt out. And I believe if you do that as a marketer, you can be very successful.
Perfect. Now, you talked about, if someone opts out. What happens if someone opts out? How does that affect, the marketing strategy? Is that a good thing that people are opting out and don't want their data being out there?
Well, ideally, yes. Opting, if people are opting out, you can take it as a, hey, it's very bad. People are opting out from a system. But I can look at this way on the end user side. If you're opting out, you're opting out for a reason. What is the reason? Maybe you're not providing the right services to your audience. They're not interested in your product. So when you give user a right to opt out of choices and you respect those choices, right? I believe you actually gain more respect from your end users. And if you continuously to provide the services they need, they might come back, and that actually can help marketing, right? So now you can see the churn from people who are opting out, opting in, and figure out how can you optimize your processes to make sure that you can serve all the audiences that you need. But I believe opting out doesn't mean that you're just losing customer. It means that you give you a chance to actually prove to your user that, hey, you do care about privacy, and by having a do not sell my data on your platform, having a cookie consent management on your website actually is a first step forward to let your customer know that you care about their privacy and you respect their choices.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all that insight. So that's it for our discussion for today for Countdown to U.S. Data Privacy Laws. Are you prepared? We hope that this was helpful, that you got a lot of, good kind of preparation out of it, what you need to do, how you need to prepare. Just so you know, our next live session is going to be on September 8th at 1:30. So it's also a Thursday, same time. It's going to be our founders interview. So we're going to have the Adzapier story, and we'll have Dharmesh and our other co-founder, Cash, by us. And we're very excited for that. So hopefully you save the date, September 8th. And in the meantime, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and stay in touch with all the helpful tips and tips and tricks, resources, everything you need. It's all there. Make sure you follow us,
All
and
right.
enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. It was where we had some technical difficulties, so hopefully we can figure this out by next session and look forward to next one.
Yes. Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.